And then I remember trying some of those jokes first on Zoom comedy shows. And like that was really helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. People hated Zoom comedy shows. I was like, oh my gosh, it was like super pivotal for me.
This is Good One. I'm your host, Jesse David Fox, senior writer at Vulture and author of Comedy Book. My guest today is Atsuko Okatsuka. We talk about her newest special, Father, which is out on Hulu now, her previous special, The Intruder, which came out on HBO, and how, since the pandemic, she's integrated her social media with her stand-up, creating a new sort of way of being a comedian. We also get to the bottom of whether she does or does not resent how iconic her haircut has become. Here is Atsuko Okatsuka. I'm here with Atsuko Okatsuka.
I'm here with Jesse David Fox.
Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. First question, what is the funniest thing that happened to you this week?
Okay, so it's funniest thing that's happened to me.
Or you noticed or you thought about?
Because, this week has been like, oh, go to New York, do press. It's a lot of thinking about me.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like so hard because I like to observe things, right? And be in the city. I like to wander. I like to be a little lost. I haven't had to do that.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten to do that.
Yeah, because people are just like, okay, you now go here right now.
Yeah. You. How's your hair? Remember, I was just asking about the hair. I brought a brush.
Mm-hmm.
It's sitting near me.
Yeah.
Because it's like, me. It's so stupid. But because of that, like the things I've laughed at are my own clips.
Yeah.
And that's so stupid. Because I've had to approve. I have to be like, I just did Seth Meyer, right? And then, they're like, do you want to collab on this video? So I'm watching it. I'm going, oh man, I was funny. So yeah, the last thing I laughed at or thought was funny was a rant I did on Seth Meyers.
Is there a specific thing you do that you find funny in yourself?
And you do,
like when you're watching yourself, that you go, that's my favorite Atsuko right there, that type of thing.
I think all the time. It's good to feel proud of yourself.
Are you your favorite comedian?
No, but this week I have to be. It's a lot to be on.
Yeah.
You have to have a lot of, you have to, the whole like looking in the mirror being like, you're strong, you are beautiful, you got this. It's a lot of that going on.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we're so loose, we're so fun, comedians, oh, so confident. It's scary.
Yeah. No,
it's nerve-wracking.
Can't imagine.
So, it's a lot of like, I did good,
Yeah, you are doing so good with this.
Thank you.
Well, this is going to be exactly like that again. But better, I hope.
Well, because, podcasts are too, like we get a longer time to hang out.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Late night is like 8 to 10 minutes. Be interesting, bitch. Go.
Yeah. It's like immediately they're like, it's now the time. You can't be interesting before it starts. And it's not useful to be interesting after it ends. You have to be only interesting during that one
during
window.
That time, and there's an audience, and you want to, do good. It's,
The one time I did late night, I was like, was I too interesting during the pre-call? Should I have saved some of my interesting for on air? And I'll leave it to the commenters to decide if I was interesting enough when I was on Seth Meyers.
Oh, I mean, I'm sure we're always going to think that.
Yeah.
Because, the pre-call is like, you didn't have to show your face.
Yeah. And it could go on forever. I feel like my pre-call was like 45 minutes.
Oh,
I was like, so there's probably something in there.
Oh my gosh, yeah, totally.
Or you have to come with like, this is the bit. We're gonna do this bit. I don't know what bit you did, but I'm sure you did. Did you have like a little thing?
Yeah. Like, we'll talk about like, your cheerleading days and you having performed in Japan for your dad for the first time, that kind of thing. And then, you were undocumented. So, if you want to say something about LA, I think they were looking at my Instagram, with performers like me who put a lot of my life online. I think it was easier for them to know what I've been up to.
Yeah. It's also that clip did well. Let's do a clip like this clip.
Yes, totally. Exactly. Yeah.
To be fair, I also did that for this interview. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Well, I've done other things. It's not only going to be like, here's a clip. Let's talk about that clip. So this clip does well. What I want to start, this is the framing of the conversation we're going to have, hopefully. I was thinking that you are pioneering a new sort of comedian career, which is like you are more online than most stand-up comedians, and you were earlier, but you definitely are more of a stand-up comedian than people who purport to be a comedian online. I think a lot of comedians are going to be in the space that you are now, but you kind of discovered it organically. So I want to talk about that journey.
Yeah. I love that journey.
So,
I know it well.
Yes, I know. It's your entire life for the last 5-6 years. But I want to talk about the period before this transition online and before COVID and the comedy you were doing then. How would you describe it? Or was there a joke or a show or any time where you felt like you were not being authentic on stage before COVID, where your career transitioned?
Yeah, I think a lot of the time, like, oh, do I sound more like this? Am I, when I first started, I was like, oh, maybe like I liked being deadpan. And so I was like very deadpan. And then it's like, oh, but where do you go from there? Because also, my range is not just that. I'm unhinged. Sometimes I just make a noise and no words come out. But that's what I'm saying. That was my thought.
Yeah.
Right, of the moment. I make up words. I'm very energetic, but also I go deadpan too, because that's also how I express. I have this lower voice. I'm an alto. I found out.
Yeah. How did you find that out?
When I was screaming on this water park ride, I was like, oh, I don't hit high notes. That's how I found out when my dad put me on a ride in Indonesia. But because it's Indonesia, it was just the ocean. I was like, oh, you said water park? This is Indian Ocean.
Yeah.
And so that's when I found out
that you don't have a high voice. So like I was listening to your earlier records, and it's like your act was like way more political.
Yes.
And like way more like, I remember there's a joke you had about the Hey There Delilah movie.
Oh my gosh.
It's actually like a fine joke, but I go, that's not her at all. Like, that's a good joke she thought of that is completely detached from her voice.
Some of the things I barely remember, too. But I kind of remember that being maybe from my album, right? Yeah. That I shot, I recorded maybe in 2018 or 2019, and then it came out 2020. Yes, yeah. So that was not the deadpan time.
No, that was the time.
Deadpan was like when I first started, and then I was like, oh, so I started touring with like more like very political comedians. They were in politics, in fact, before comedy. They were like social justice people. And I'm 10 years younger than them. So when we formed an all Asian, mostly female stand-up group, spearheaded by one of them, Jenny Yang. I was like, oh, maybe I'm supposed to sound like that too, because it was like working for them, and it's how they thought.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was easily like, more trying to morph into whatever was near me. Yeah. Trying to be a sponge. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to ask you about is, what was your experience with what was once called Quibi? You had a Quibi show but it never, I believe, never aired.
Right. Yeah, we shot the pilot.
Tell me about your Quibi experience, your Quibi arc from maybe this is going to be my thing. My big break will be this Quibi thing to what?
Jesse, everyone's Quibi arc is very short.
Sure.
It's like a month long.
Tell me about that month. Tell me about the first day of that month, what you were thinking, and then tell me about the last day.
I mean, it's longer than that. Sure. Honestly, it's strangely, surprisingly. I just like pitched the show. It was like National Lampoon. People had reached out about like this show I was doing live. Let's Go Atsuko, a Japanese game show. And so they were like, oh, this could be a show, and then Quibi was a thing. But we went around and pitched it to other places too, like Comedy Central. Yeah. But it was at the time Quibi was like, you can be you. Yeah. We will pay for it, right? And ultimately, that wasn't a show that was really me either. Yeah. It was really trying a lot of things, only to realize.
Yeah, it was like a good idea you had, but not necessarily an idea only you could have done.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I'm not an idea person necessarily. That's why, we'll get to that, but that's why the pandemic and just being me. Yeah. Turns out this whole time people were like wanting just me, right? Yeah. But I didn't know what that meant, what me was. I was scared. So I was like, oh, I'll do a game show. There'll be panelists. There'll be games. I'll host. And there'll be like 8 minutes of jokes. But, it's not stand-up comedy the whole time. Yeah. I should have known where Quibi was going to go. I did know, kind of. But this is the best description of Quibi for me is when I was pitching the show in the meeting with Quibi execs, apparently, so we were done. we were finished, and they were like, okay, like we love it, you know. We came out of the meeting, and the producers I was with were like, Atsuko, you kept calling it Quibbly. I was like, what? They were like, you kept saying Quibbly. So I wasn't there being like, okay, so here at Quibbly, right? You have what? You have narratives, blah, 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 blah. So let's say we get on Quibbly. Well, so apparently I was doing that, which that says a lot about like your name.
And that they had the feeling about they didn't correct you.
They didn't correct me.
Or they still gave you a show despite the fact that you actively called it the wrong name to their face.
Yeah, I don't know if I was accidentally gaslighting for them to be like, "Ooh, we need to work with her."
Yeah.
Or they were like, "It's a better name, Quibbly." I mean,
it's a cuter name.
Neither makes sense.
No.
So I think they were like, "She's right."
Quibi stood for quick bite, so Quibbly would be quick blight.
Come on, that's cute too.
Yeah, it is cute.
Right?
Whatever it means.
Yeah.
You know, COVID comes and you start posting, and specifically the videos you do with Ryan, your husband, and your grandmother really start doing well. Do you remember the first time you decided to do videos with your family specifically?
I mean, I've been doing them before pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's like dance videos of us from like, I don't know, 2017, 2018 too.
Yeah, do you even remember when you did those videos? When you first thought, this is like a thing, what were you responding to? Where did you get the idea? What was your instinct?
Yeah, I mean, I was a dance fitness instructor, so I was always like thinking of choreo anyway, at the time. And so, and like, I see my mom and grandma and my husband all the time. So, you know, I guess ever since I was a kid, I was always like doing something to see if I could make my mom feel better or whatnot. My mom loves songs. She loves to sing. She loves music. My grandma can go through life without listening to anything at all. She just she works in silence. She lives in silence most of the time. That's how we grew up too.
Yeah.
No culture. And so, no culture, no vulture. And
wait, we didn't exist then.
No.
If we were around then, maybe our grandmother would be like, I've changed my mind.
She'd be on JFL New Faces.
Yeah.
You mean we as in you?
Yeah, well, me, Vulture, me were around when your grandmother was a kid.
She would be, Variety Top 10 comics to watch. Which she could be still. She still has 17,000 followers on X. So, it's so wild. She just said like, hello, everyone, I love you. That was it. And boom, 17,000 followers. I was like, Grandma, do you know how many comedians have been for years just crafting, using every brain cell they have to just one joke. Maybe it'll take off. You know what I mean? Maybe then I'll hit those followers. She just had to be her.
Yeah.
This whole time.
I think that's the thing that comedians need to learn.
Yeah.
Is allow themselves to express actual affection towards their audience.
Yes, but sometimes you don't know. You go, I don't have an audience, so who am I?
Yeah.
I don't know what draws people to me. I don't know who I am.
Yeah.
Because I could be anyone.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes longer, especially I didn't have older siblings to teach me, hey, this is Brandy, the singer or whatever. I had to discover it through like classmates, and I had a hard time making friends too. So, you know what I mean? Oh, so we're like so far ahead. You're trying to start at
no. This is all is
2017.
Be yourself. We want you to be.
You're trying to be at 2017.
So you were
because we were just naturally gonna hang out and dance anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was like, well, here's a camera. Let's do it.
Yeah. So then during the pandemic, when a lot of people were more online, TikTok really starts blowing up during that, and then these videos start doing well. Do you remember in that era anyone in particular you remember filming that just like the day where you regardless of how it did, but the day filming it stands out, being like that was a really fun one to do, or really memorable, or really special?
Yeah. We were in the kitchen of my grandma's house. Me and Ryan, my husband, were running like a summer camp pretty much for mom and grandma. That's what people were doing. If they were in a pod with like elders. I don't know. I honestly don't know that many people that were in pods with the elders because the whole slogan was, right, don't kill your grandma.
That was the
don't
slogan.
Kill. Yeah. But I was like, well, grandma's going to die if we're not there.
Yeah.
We need to be with grandma and mom, you know? And so we were like the pod for each other. And then so we were already like having them paint. We would have paint classes together. Ryan would lead that because he's a painter. And then, you know, little dance sessions with me. I was the dance instructor. And then we would then go unhinged. And, you know, there was a video to Shakira's Hips Don't Lie. So we danced to that in the kitchen. My grandma had like little oranges, and Ryan also helped direct it. He was like, "Oh, what if she's playing like, oh no, it was potato drums." And so she's drumming because in that song there's like the drums. I love musicality a lot. I love paying attention to little details like that, being what we focus on or showcase. So there's these dun, 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 drums in that song. And my grandma was on the beat for that with potatoes on top of this plastic thing that you wash clothes in. But it's upside down so she can make it drums. And then I'm on a chair dancing barefoot. Yeah.
¿Cómo se llama? Bonita, Picasa,
Shakira. Do you remember when the audience the audience that was watching these videos started asking about your mother? Like, I feel like I remember the first time you addressed it, you started by being like, I know people are asking, like, where's your mother? Why do you live with your grandmother or something like that? Do you remember when they started asking? Because, like, in your previous albums, you'll talk about your mother growing up, but you will not reveal that you don't talk about how she has schizophrenia. You just will talk about, she'll say this. She doesn't like it when I do this, you know? Do you remember when they were asking and how you felt about them asking and how you wanted to talk about it, if you debated, if you wanted to address that? And when they asked, then how you decided to, how you first addressed it, which is you literally just talk to the camera and explain the situation.
Yeah, it's just in the comments, you know, because they go, or they call my grandma my mom. They'll be like, her mom is like on it. Her mom's got moves. And I'd be like, oh, that's actually my grandma.
Yeah.
Oh, so then where's your mom? You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then how did you decide that you wanted to explain what was happening?
Well, I really had to think about it. It's something I've always wanted to talk about, but I didn't know how to be funny about that. Because again, I didn't know what my audience was. I didn't even know if the audience would want to hear about that. But then these comments giving me permission, right? We want to know where your mom is. And then I answered and they're like, oh, wow. Like, and then people started sharing their stories. My mom's like that. Or, you know, my brother has schizophrenia or whatnot. And so that encouraged me to, you know, really figure out what the jokes about my mom having schizophrenia is about. Yeah. You know?
It's not only like, oh, it made me comfortable to know there's people that want to know, but also like even just the practice of talking about it all allows you to feel like, oh, I can talk about it this way.
Yeah, totally. And then I remember trying some of those jokes first on Zoom comedy shows. And like that was really helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. People hated Zoom comedy shows. I was like, oh my gosh, it was like super pivotal for me.
What about them?
Well, also it's the only time you're performing while you're seeing your face the whole time.
Yeah.
So you're noticing little tics you do, little eye movements, you know, that you do when you're doing a punchline or, so it's just, it was really unique. It was helpful for me. I still use those techniques on stage till this day.
Yeah. And then the other thing was the drop challenge becomes a sort of another phenomenon beyond the sort of success you're already having. Can you describe coming up with it, but then also how did you feel about its success? Like that, the videos we're doing, like, oh, it's a comedian, they're doing sort of funny videos, they're stand-up interconnects. That becomes sort of detached from your comedic existence in some ways, or can be. Like, I think some comedians be like, that's not doing stand-up at all. But I think maybe it was different for you. Can you talk about first coming up with it and then sort of how you felt about its virality?
Yeah, that was just me having fun again with the family. Because I've had that song stuck in my head. Again, it's the musicality thing. Give me some, right? That beat drop. And I was like, well, what if it would be so funny if your body dropped at the same time too?
Yeah.
Right? And because it was pandemic, it was still like pandemic. That was like 2022.
Yeah.
Well, we kind of were coming out of it.
Yeah.
But because of that, I didn't really have tape of my stand-up besides things that were, Zoom show recordings.
Yeah.
But, you know, do I want that to be the stand-up clips that I post online?
Yeah.
You know, I posted one because something funny had happened and it was like it was like a crowd work moment.
Yeah.
While I was doing stand-up on Zoom, you know, someone in the audience went, "End Asian hate," you know?
Sure.
Right. And I was like, oh, yes, I'll make sure to do that. You know, I said, oh, so you know what's a good way to end Asian hate is when a bitch has only got 7 minutes to do her set, you kind of just let her. But yes, I will stop hating Asians. And so, you know, they were trying to be in solidarity with me, but it's just a funny moment. Yeah, so because of that, I didn't have that much tape of me doing stand-up. You know, I got to really start honing my voice, writing jokes at home and
Yeah.
performing it on Zoom. And then by the time, and I'm still a dancer. Those things are still me. And so when the drop challenge kind of happened and I garnered even more audience members, I was like, I think I can think about a tour. I can start touring. I've been doing stand up for so long. And yeah, I'm getting my voice finally.
Yeah, it is really interesting because it did feel like, and this is what I was talking about before, which is because you were forced to sort of divide up the time where you're like, oh, I'll be essentially an influencer for a year. Then you already had 10 years where you're already doing stand-up. So you were like very ready. And it did feel like there is something exciting to when a stand-up is being first introduced to an audience. They are so ready to be introduced. And it did feel that way. How did it feel like when you started doing stand-up again to an audience that now who knew who you were, which is so different than the stand-up you were doing 2 years prior, where the people
Totally.
you truly were just like a name on a lineup, or
Yeah.
How did it feel? How did it feel like your voice was coming to its own when you were doing that?
It was really cool. It was like real time also, because okay, these are the jokes I wrote, and then seeing it work, and then that would also encourage me. I'm a extrovert, and that like the energy in front of me will help me come up with tags on the spot or write even more.
Yeah.
Okay, you really like that stuff. Okay, I have more. I have more on that. I don't know, food.
Yeah.
Or whatever, or the grandma of it, or
Yeah.
And trying different things and being like, okay, I'm still going back to the doubting my stand-up is enough. The first time I toured out of the pandemic, or once the vaccines were available and stuff, I still had like this. My grandma would call in and she would show up on a video.
Yeah.
Because I thought, oh, is it my grandma you also really love? Do you want to see her more than me? It's still that self-doubt.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you didn't know if they actually wanted you, the artist, or just like bought tickets to be like, I saw her online. I have no idea what the show is going to be.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So I was like, do I dance? You know what I mean? A lot? Or, but it was mostly stand-up.
Yeah,
Just like 3 times during it, my grandma interrupts by calling me on Skype and her face pops up. Yeah.
So I want to talk about the joke that's in your new special, Father, which is about how being married is more childish than dating. I want to just talk about that joke and that arc of it, but can you summarize it for anyone not familiar, the basic premise of the joke?
Yeah, it's just that, because me and my husband are super like, so not organized. We're bad at being adults, paperwork, no idea. That's why we had to get married 2 times, because we actually didn't file the paperwork, our marriage paperwork, the first time. We didn't know for 7 years. Constantly surprising ourselves. What? You've been doing the laundry? I haven't been, I was like, oh, we're so childlike, because we do, what do couples do? They talk in baby voice with each other, and even calling each other baby or babe. That baby is a literal infant from how I learned English. You know what I mean? But if we do that, sweet, sweetie, honey bun, you know what I mean? And then it's like, oh, yeah, we become codependent. That's kind of childlike too, like to need someone else. And so, yeah, the idea is that like married people are more childlike than single people, because single people have to look out for themselves and like be their own reminder to leave the house on time, do their own laundry. You don't got anyone else. You know what I mean? Like being like, I got you, babe.
So then what is your process to develop a thing? Like you have this observation, then develop a thing into material?
Right. I mean, I talk things out loud at home, and something like I was telling Ryan, like, God, we're such babies, right? We're so childlike. And then so I started like playing around with it at home. And then, just doing the whole like, if this, then what, right?
Yeah.
Like, if it's childlike, okay, let's come up with examples. What are some things couples say to each other, married couples? That's my best friend.
Yeah.
That are also childlike.
Yeah.
There's some parts of it that I cut out because I wanted to do then from the children's perspective. Well, I talk about how in the morning my husband wakes me up by rubbing my belly.
Yeah.
And he goes marinating, which I don't even think that's how marinating works, but it's how we marinate meat. And so, right, you just kind of let the meat set in the marination.
Yes, yeah.
But for him, you got to rub it in.
Yeah.
Yes. So he's, right, which is also very childlike of us.
Yes.
And so then I started trying to link, like, I think that's why kids would like the idea of polyamory, because that's even more best friends that I could rub bellies with. You know what I mean?
Got it. Oh, so you're saying the joke originally is like you did the married person's perspective, which sounded childlike. You did dating as if it was adult. Then you're sort of like doing a child understanding of marriage and then using a child's like perspective on certain other things.
Yeah, where a kid would be like, well, then why just stop at marriage,
Yeah.
Because and it's still the idea that like being adults, we have such childlike ways of doing things that are supposedly more adult and progressive, like polyamory, but it's actually very childlike to be in. I want everyone, you know what I mean? More people to share things with.
But then why'd you cut that part out?
Because I was afraid I was like promoting that to kids. You know what I mean? Promoting polyamory.
I'm not sure I do. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I'm not sure a kid, how it would work where you're promoting one way or the other to a kid be like, oh, I'm trying to think of how.
You know how people always already think we're like pedophiles because we're like whatever, not Republican.
Sure.
I just was like, I don't want people to think I'm sitting there thinking to myself, children having multiple sexual partners. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess it's sort of like a space of like, you don't want to have to deal with how the audience is putting it together, and you don't want a second of them being like, what? Like if they mishear something, then next thing you know, they're.
Yeah. I think that's why I kind of stopped it at, like, I kind of hint at it. Like, when we were kids, it was like, right, like, you have a crush on everybody. Write a Valentine's card for everyone. Okay, yes, I equally love everyone. You know what I mean? Hold hands, everyone, kind of polyamorous, And so I kind of stopped it there, but I don't say that kids would think it's awesome.
Yeah, I can see the difference.
Yeah.
So this joke, so you do it in court in 2021. I believe you filmed it for The Intruder and cut it. I believe you said that it was in The Intruder and it was cut.
Yeah.
And then it's now in The Father. Do you remember why you cut it and how has your relationship to this joke changed?
Yeah, I cut it because it didn't go with with the flow of that last special. I was like trying to force it in because I was like, well, it's got to be in a special somewhere. Right? Because it's the essence of so much of me and Ryan, And so, yeah, I did it on late night, but I was like, it's kind of important to show what, like, me and Ryan's relationship is like a little bit. And also, I have this very, like, cheerleader-esque quality to me. I am a cheerleader in that, like, I still do that for people. I love making people feel seen instead of, like, criticizing things. I'm not, right? Like, I talk about things I love, not things that annoy me.
Yeah.
Which is another way to do comedy.
Sure.
Right? It's just important to show that perspective. It shows that very much. Because I'm defending single people.
Yeah.
It's easy to make fun of single people. Oh, what? And then you're like, out there dating sucks. It's, I don't know. I kind of find it boring.
Yeah.
I always want to defend the people that, are easy to make fun of, I think.
Yeah. There's a way in which you engage with a lot of the things you talk about, even the heavier things you're talking about, which is sort of like you arrive in a place and you're like, what is this thing? How did I get here? What is happening? Which is, there's an innocence to it that I think partly it helps when you're talking about literally things that happen when you're a kid. But like that is a specific perspective where it's like marriage is a good example of it because we think of being married as that means you're growing up and you're maturing. And it's like, oh no, this is the example of how this is one of the most childish things that I've done as an adult.
Right, yeah. Because I talk about like not knowing how to do laundry and stuff in this latest special in Father, it just fit more there. And I'm asking how to make friends as an adult, which is also a childlike thing.
Yeah. There are a few changes between James Corden and the special over those 4 years. I don't know how conscious they are, but they all are in the defending single people section. In Corden, you say you have to be interesting. You have to seem emotionally stable, especially when you're on like a first date. There's a lot at stake. Do you want to be alone forever? No. Sorry for reading it like it's a court transcript.
No, yeah.
And then
I love that.
And the special,
I'm being accused.
Yeah. And then in the special, you have the same thing, which is you have to be on places on time. Otherwise, you have no one else to blame. It's like you imagine you're just there. You go, oh God, yes, it's just me. Party of one. That's a new joke. Then you have a thing where you call back to the tandem bike. And then you have the same thing about you need to be emotionally stable. But then you say stakes are high. You never know if your soulmate's anywhere. You have to always be on. So those are changes. Do you have any sense of why those changes were made?
I think I didn't love that. Like, do you want to be alone forever? No. I was like, well, that's actually making you feel bad.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was trying to be like, oh, you have to be on.
Yeah.
Make it more, try to take away, even more any shame of being alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing I was curious about is you're a very physical comedian, even when you're not doing act outs. Like there's a physicality to sort of all your jokes, even if you're just like standing.
Yeah.
How do you think about it? How do you approach that as a person whose background is also dance?
Well, it's just how I communicate.
Yeah.
Every country I've lived in or have been moved to or I'm part of, I didn't even I speak Mandarin too because I'm Taiwanese, but I didn't learn Mandarin until I was moved to America. So I had to learn because I moved in with my Taiwanese relatives. I had to go to a Chinese church where they spoke Mandarin. And so I was learning English and Mandarin at the same time. Even in Japan, I was, being half Taiwanese, they were very xenophobic, I didn't always know the language of the place I was at.
Yeah.
So I always communicated more with physicality. And I don't know if you've been to Japan or seen Japanese performers. We're just very, like, physically, that's how we communicate.
Yeah.
But also because of that, some of the comedians early on that I was watching were physical performers like Charlie Chaplin and Lucille Ball because I didn't need language to understand them. So, yeah, that's how I communicate in real life. So I'm going to end up doing that in stand-up too.
Do you choreograph when you do it or is it literally just instinctual?
No, sometimes I end up like hitting the same sort of stuff because that's what translates.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, if that works, I'm not going to make it more confusing because some of the physical stuff I do, I'm like, I'm so surprised people understand what I'm doing there. Or people just accept that that's a thing I'm going to do. Like at one point in Father, I kind of do like a slow, what it's supposed to be like a slow dip or death drop is another thing, is another term for it.
Yeah.
And drag queens do it after I say, I am Father, right? But maybe not everyone knows what that is. But they just allow for it to happen.
Yeah.
At one point I say, when you have daytime friends and nighttime friends, they can't meet because then they'll know you're a liar, right? And I, go into some of the examples they might be shocked about, like, oh, you drink? Or, I thought you were vegan. No, only during the day. At night I crave blood, right? And then I do this. Do you even know what that is?
It's you being a vampire going
into
this.
Oh, thank you. See, so for the most part, if you've watched cartoons, I'm very like a cartoon.
Yeah.
Even keeping this haircut, I say I'm Dora the Explorer, but I mean, I am, that's what we are as performers.
Yeah.
We, comedians especially, we keep a similar look for a reason. We are, Minnie Mouse, Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the look because you do a joke in the special about your haircut, and you joke about wanting to grow your hair out, but you can't because it's your brand, which is this haircut. For people watching, if you're listening, it's the famous bowl cut. It's the famous bowl cut. That is truly, if someone drew your hair, they'd be like, oh, that's Atsuko.
Formerly Dimitri Martin.
Fair.
Yeah.
But it's funny because in your albums, you have jokes before you have a bowl cut, but you still reference your hair as if it's iconic when it was just bangs.
Oh,
You'll be like, I have bangs, something. And it's like, well, you knew there's going to be something about you and hair. You just haven't landed on it yet. Can you talk about coming up with this haircut and how you feel about it now that it is the brand?
Yeah. Well, so like when we were shooting the pilot for Quibi, I landed on this haircut. It's, I think subconsciously, well, it's a haircut I had when I was a kid. A toddler, like 4. A lot of Asian kids have this haircut. Yeah, it's very chic to me. I love fashion. I love like a precision cut.
Yeah.
But also, it's an homage to like my Asian roots and, the things that people go, oh, I hated that haircut. I had that one too. But it's about me owning it.
Yeah.
All the things that might have made you feel like a freak before, I feel like that's a lot of my MO.
Yeah.
Is just own the things that, like defend the things that people are going to make fun of. That's easy to make fun of.
Yeah. How do you feel about it now that, people show up and they'll either have a bowl cut because of you, or they'll have I feel like I've seen pictures where people have postery things they put over their head.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you're still leaning into your next tour is bowl themed. I can't remember the specific name for it,
Yeah,
but it's still happening. You have it currently right now as we speak. But also before we spoke, you did feel somewhat burdened by the upkeep of it. How do you feel about it in so much as you had intention behind starting it? And how do you feel about it as defining you in so many ways?
I mean, there's a movement now, right? Where people are showing up in wigs of my bowl cut and stuff like that. And it's easy to draw.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I joked on Kimmel, does Goofy take that lime green hat off? No, because then he'd just be any other dog.
Yeah.
He might as is he Beethoven? Is he Clifford? I mean, Clifford is red.
And
but that's his
quite big.
brand. And that's his brand.
Yeah.
If Clifford was not red, he's just a big dog. Right?
Yes.
So
it's as much as he's Clifford the big red dog. If he was not red, he would just be Clifford the big dog.
The big dog. Okay. Big dog is already a clothing brand. Do you know it?
It's a great point. Yes.
It's like a Saint Bernard, I think.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't know what kind of dog Clifford is, but
red.
He's red dog.
Yeah.
You can't take away that color.
No.
And so I don't know. That's just how it becomes. Tig Notaro's had the same haircut for forever.
So you don't. That's a joke. Ultimately, the joke you do in the special is ultimately a joke. You don't want to get rid of it.
No, it's still defending the idea of we have to be interesting. It's hard to be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So it's okay to be basic and be into things like the live, laugh, love sign, because this haircut I have to upkeep every 3 weeks. It's a burden.
Yeah.
This is me being interesting.
I want to ask you about a word that anytime I bring it up to certain comedians, they do hate it.
Okay.
But I'm curious, what do you think about it? Which is quirky.
Oh, uh-huh.
How do you feel about it? If people call you quirky, do you go, oh no? Or do you go, you know what? Okay.
No, I'm so not I don't hate the things that are easy to hate.
Mm-hmm.
If something is quirky, I mean, it's in the dictionary. I don't know. We can use it. If it's overused because, I don't know, irony or whatever, I don't know when people use quirky the most.
I think they've scaled back now that Zooey Deschanel is not on TV
New
all the
Girl time, right?
Yes.
New Girl times, yeah.
But I feel if anything, we have quirky nostalgia about to come back.
If it's genuine quirky, I think it's because it was they were putting glasses on hot people and being like, that's a nerd. You know what I mean? It's
Sure.
because it wasn't genuine. I think it just comes back to you being genuine.
Yeah.
If you're genuinely quirky, that's the word for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think probably around the Zooey Deschanel time, it also was I'm sure coded and felt dismissive to some people who were I'm a grown up, right? Where it's I'm grown up, I'm not quirky, I'm a business person.
Sure. Yes, I'm normal. I'm fit in.
Yeah.
I'm society.
A few jokes from your last two specials that I feel are thematically connected, and I want to lay them all out and underline the clear theme of them. But I'm going to introduce a joke, and if you just summarize them real quick.
Yeah.
The first joke is the joke from The Intruder about when your partner becomes your family.
Mm-hmm.
What is the basic premise of that?
My husband, when he gets groceries, he always brings back what we call a surprise treat. I know, and it's always something new and something that's not on the grocery list, and it's what I look forward to every single week. I know, and it's very sweet and very cute, yeah, but that is also how our relationship turned into a father-daughter one, My husband sometimes goes and gets me what we call a sweet treat.
Mm-hmm.
It's very nice, and I look forward to it. It's something I look forward to every single week. But it's also how we started our relationship became a father-daughter one.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. Because, right, like I said earlier,
Yeah.
right? It's now you're dating your mom or dad.
Yeah. So then that leads into the joke about synchronized dances with Ryan and his feeling about it, which is
Yes.
what's the general gist of that.
Right. It was that I love doing things together. I mean, I was a cheerleader in high
Yeah.
school, and that's very synchronized. I'm also from Japan, where a lot of people, we're all synchronized, a lot of times,
Mhm.
right? Wearing uniforms, stuff like that. And I've always wanted a sibling.
Yeah.
I've always wanted a sister. And that's what Ryan said when I was like trying to make him do choreographed dances with me and we would film it. Sometimes I would. One time I put a wig of my hair on him too and made him do the dance with me. And then he was like, I don't like doing these because you always want to make us look like we're sisters. I thought it was so funny. I was like, you're right. You're not my sister. You're my dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So continuing with this theme, I think you'll start realizing there's a joke in the new special that you realize Ryan does everything.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the general gist of that joke?
Right. I realized that Ryan had been doing the laundry for the past 7 years. And he was shocked. I was shocked. We both realized at the same time. And and then, you know, how a lot of my fellow female comedians, right? Like, or when my girlfriends talk about their husbands.
Yeah.
And they're like, he's so messy. Like Natasha Leggero, the way she talks about Moshe.
Sure, yeah.
I'm like, I'm Moshe.
Yeah.
I'm the husband. Right?
Yeah.
And so that's the realization too. Like, you know, like we don't, girls, we don't have to be the ones that are on top of things and know everything and be stable. Right? Like we're not a monolith,
Yeah.
you know, and my fans call me mother, but mothers have it together.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm more father.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ryan is mother.
Ryan is mother.
Ryan.
That's the conclusion.
And then the drop. And then also in the special, you joke about how your father and you have the same bodies, which leads you to point out that you call him your sister.
That's right, as well.
And
I'm
then-
just always trying to get a sister.
Yeah, I think-
I've
and then-
always still wanted a sister.
And the last thing in the Intruder, you talk about going to see Magic Mike with your grandmother, who you refer to as your father's sister. Then you describe taking your mother and your grandmother to Vegas, and you say, because mommy knows what's best for her kids.
That's right.
The point.
Oh yeah, have you seen Parasite, the movie? That's our family.
Yeah, but the funny thing is, there's 6 jokes essentially where you like reshuffle the
Yeah.
family dynamics, 3 per special, which is I found it's a funny theme. Where do you think that comes from?
It's how family is in that, like, when I don't know. I've heard because I don't have siblings, but you know, siblings raising their other siblings. If they're the oldest and the parents have to work or
Yeah.
something, right? Or if they're latchkey kids, then you know you become not just a sister, but also the mom to your or the dad to your siblings. Things like that. Things are always moving around because we don't have a conventional family. I don't
Yeah.
have a lot of us don't, right? And so it's the idea that it is interchangeable. I didn't have a dad in my life for a long time. My grandma was also the dad. She was also who raised me. She was also my mom. So it's like, yeah, it's easy for me to give everyone different titles.
Yeah.
Because that's what we are to each other.
Is there a story that captures that familial dynamic of where either what it's like now or what it was in terms of like how non-conventionally aligned it is or has become, where your husband is kind of like is father, but he's also your sister, but also he's like your grandmother's father, but your grandmother's also like your sister, your grandmother's also like your mom's mother, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. I mean, there was one point my mom started hitting on Ryan. And so I was like, oh no, is that my sister wife? Because my mom, you know, hasn't been touched romantically by a man since my dad.
Yeah.
Right? And she's like at home a lot. She's sick. And so towards the end of, not COVID, it's not the end of COVID, but, you know, like after vaccines were available and things were starting to open back up, you know, COVID messed up a lot of people. Of course, it's going to mess up my mom who has schizophrenia and hasn't been laid in 30-something years.
Yeah.
She started looking at Ryan, my husband, differently. And it made dinners awkward. She would make weird comments. She was sexually harassing him. Me and my grandma thought it was funny. Like, ah, ha, ha, you know. And we were stoked because my mom was in a better mood because of it. Or else she would throw temper tantrums. Ryan wasn't stoked about it, you know. And so that's when I was like, oh, yeah, see, another dynamic shifted.
Yeah.
Because she's supposed to be his mom-in-law, but trying to, like, you know, trying to hook up with him. And I'm stoked about it. So what does that make me?
Yeah.
Also, like a stoked sister or best friend? Who am I?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I was like, Ryan, just show her, I don't know, how to use the sex toy or something. And he's like, no. He's like, no, not everything has to be like funny for you guys. What if it's, how about me? And so, yeah, it was a situation.
I want to talk a little bit about your husband, Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for the last decade or so in comedy, we had a lot of wife guy comedians. Comedians who didn't just do jokes that are like, my wife, she sucks or whatever. And you're really pioneering a sort of husband-gal comedian.
I know. Ryan said that. Ryan told me that. He said, you're like my husband. Yeah. You're the my wife. Like,
reverse.
Yeah. My husband did this.
How's it feel?
I love my husband. I think it's great. I think, again, I talk about the things I love. So, yeah. It's, right. It's easy to trash on husband, but like, I also can't lie. People have asked him, how does it feel, her talking about you so much? He's like, she makes me look like an angel. I do. I'm the bad one.
Yeah.
I'm the villain in these stories. I'm the one like, oops.
You do make him seem like the most supportive and competent person.
He's so hot. I don't know how. I'm sure people are like, oh, I wish I. People have told me in comments too. Like, I wish I had a Ryan. I wish I had a Ryan. That's a comment that I see a lot actually. I wish I had a Ryan. And then one time I caught Ryan commenting under, going, "Me too." Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Someone who will help him out.
Yeah. I think everyone would like another person who was essentially like, in so much as he's a mother, I think everyone would like another person around who just like would do certain things.
Right.
Can you outline essentially Ryan's role? His involvement in your career is unlike a lot of husbands in so much he's very involved in sort of the creative of it. I mean, he directed this special. Can you describe how he's involved?
Yeah, I mean, we toured together, and I run my jokes by him. He's very witty. He's very funny. He's an artist too, you know. He was a performer. He was an actor before. He's also a filmmaker. So we both have like a similar background because I also studied film. We don't have like a title for what it is, right? But we just work together.
He's like essentially. This now exists so much more in music, which is creative director. Now every pop star has like another person
creative
who
director.
is their creative
That's what it's called.
Like,
I don't know jobs. I know 5 jobs.
Wow.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, Laffy. She's great.
Her identical twin is her creative director. And like...
That's confusing. That could get confusing.
Yeah. So it'd be like, imagine if Ryan actually was your identical twin and doing similar roles.
Right.
Which it does seem like actually your dream.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, this is a dream. I'm living my dream right now.
Yeah.
I have my sister, who's sister, father, husband.
Creative director / creative director.
And creative director. You know what I mean?
I was thinking about, when you talked about your life on stage, you're also talking about his life on stage. And you got a lot of feedback, positive feedback, when you started talking about your mom's schizophrenia. And so you got more comfortable talking about it on stage. But in doing so, you also talk about his mom's schizophrenia. What were the conversations like around that? Because, you know, he has less control over that situation. And obviously he's supportive of your career, but it is his story in a way that involves you, but is a little bit different. I was curious how you guys talked about that.
Yeah, we talk about what can be touched on or shouldn't be, you know. So I run it by him. I was like, is it okay if I mention that? He's like, yes.
Yeah.
And then if something's like, let's keep that to us, he'll tell us. He'll tell me. Us. Yeah. He'll tell us. We're Siamese twins.
Is there a time you told a joke on stage and he was there and you're like, I bet I probably shouldn't have told that joke?
Yeah, and then he's very vocal.
Yeah.
He's not like me. I'm passive. So, you know, I won't confront things.
Yeah.
He told me right away.
Can you think of the joke?
Yeah, I don't remember the joke, but it was like about him having diarrhea. You know, after the show, someone was like, hey, that's the diarrhea guy. And he was like, that's going to stick. And then so he immediately was like, can we not do that one?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah. I was like, it's not even a good joke.
Yeah.
To the point, I don't even remember it now.
What does father mean in the special? The special is named Father, and that runs through, thematically through it. What does it mean to you now? What are you trying to communicate? Yeah.
So father, you know, I mean, I talk about reconnecting with my dad and then also having something in common with him that's really stupid. And then I deconstruct the dad joke in the end. But also, you know, the idea that like, you know, the gender role reversal thing that like, you know, I'm not mother. Mother is always like put on this, the idea is that like she has it together. She's got everyone and she's the one that's nurturing, you know, and then The father gets to thrive in life, but he don't have to do as much.
Yeah.
That's me.
Yeah.
Father will be like, I haven't been doing the laundry, or, start explaining something even if they don't know the exact facts. Like, if it's true.
Yeah.
That's me.
It's also a different comedic, like, it's a comedic archetype, right? The father comedian who's like talking on stage about all the times he's doing stupid stuff. And like, it isn't contrast. I mean, this is part of what the joke is, but it's partly also like mother, as it's used, means, oh, you're iconic or whatever, right? And like, but you're just like, no, I'm father. I'm actually like a everyday person who like does not know what they're doing.
Right.
I'm not like on a mountain being like.
I mean, I'm iconic.
Yeah.
I'm iconic, but I don't know where my keys are. But I'm gonna tell you, I do. Like, for example, this is mother-father behavior. The other day, so I get my hair trimmed every 3 weeks, and my hairstylist and friend comes over to do it, and then there's hair all over the floor. Ryan will immediately start, like, vacuuming it up and sweeping it up. And the other day, I started doing lunges because I was about to go into an interview, and I wanted to look hot. That's father behavior. What he was doing was mother behavior.
In the special, you joke about being on This American Life. And specifically being approached to be on This American Life is more specifically where you essentially say you don't want to have a story to tell. You don't want Ira Glass calling you Ira Glass.
Right. Yeah.
And it's interesting because that episode it's almost like a compliment to this special where it's like it's many of the things you talk about the special happen on that episode of This American Life where you talk to your father about how he felt about when your grandmother kidnapped you, and then you talked about your grandmother and asked her if that's what it was. But that episode is a very serious episode of radio.
Yeah.
How was that experience for you?
Being on This American Life?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it really like freed me in many ways. Yeah. And my dad too, in turn. My father and I never had the conversation of whether or not I was taken without his knowledge. And I knew I didn't have the knowledge of, we're going to stay in America. But I wondered if he knew. I wondered if he had full custody of me. These things that like Ira kind of allowed for me to find out. I mean, he provided an interpreter for me. You know what I mean? Both ways, Mandarin and Japanese. So I was able to go to Japan and interview my dad and really talk to him for the first time. In a way that I never could. Same with my grandma too, to be honest. So yeah, it was, I joke that it's not good to be an inspiration, but it's, it's also how I arrived at being a comedian. And all these things.
That's why I asked partly because like you are a comedian. You could have had your life and wrote a memoir about it that is not a comedian's memoir of it. But
I don't know if I would have become even a writer.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, like, in so much as that you don't go on stage and be like, I'm not doing a one-person show, even though The Intruder had a form. It wasn't a one-person show about immigration or whatever. And the tone of it, the tone of your work, is not like the tone of This American Life piece. Or, you do a good amount of interviews and people want you to be very serious about the things that happen to you. But, like, your act is not serious in its presentation. I'm not to say you're not serious in your craft, which I believe you are.
Yeah.
And so I'm
very
curious,
silly. Yeah,
you're a very silly person, and I say that as a highest compliment. So that's why I'm curious, as a silly person who has that or who feels their voice is silliness, that they found that to be in a position where you have a part of your story is not silly or is not silly on its face. And people do want the non-silly version. However, you kind of would rather tell the silly version. And I'm curious, or your art is telling the silly version. I'm curious how you live in the space where your job involves sort of both.
I mean, it's who I am. I have this duality. I just did Fresh Air, also NPR. NPR always brings that out of me, right? Where it's, and I talked about how, for me, performing is about like protecting the audience. When I do stand up, it's about protecting the audience. They bought tickets, they came out to see me. I'm not just going to tell sad stories. I'm going to make sure you laugh, right? I want you to forget your life's problems. This is why I do this. Because you allowed for me to do that too. When I'm telling jokes, when I've taken these things that, and that's just more, sometimes I just tell dumb stuff, but then when I'm telling you the things that happened to me that weren't so happy, right? When I present it to you, no, I'm going to make sure you're laughing during it because, again, my job is to help you escape or feel seen, and laugh, truly laugh. But because of that, there is like there is an aura of sadness to me, because I'm always like, I'm a people pleaser. I think about other people's experience. Sure, I forget that like I haven't done the laundry, but I'm charming as fuck for the rest of the day. You know what I mean? Like I make sure Ryan has like the best time, and you know what I mean? And he does by the end of the day, because that's my I don't know, that's my MO. That's just how I operate. I don't want people to ever feel alone or left out. And a lot of it comes from seeing my mom suffer all my life. And she still does.
Yeah.
She can't do all the things I get to do. She can't come out to New York and have press week. She can't tour with me and see the world. She's just stuck at home watching the Travel Channel. And she tells me she wants to go out, but that's her going, you were in Belgium. I watched a piece on Belgium the other day, and I knew you were there.
Yeah.
It's like, so there's a real like sadness to me that always thinks about her and people like that. And so, yeah, it's like I can tap into both because that's where the comedy comes from.
It's funny you say that, because the top comment on the James Corden clip,
oh God, what is it?
I love how she sounds like she's on the verge of tears every time.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I'm a woman on the verge.
Yeah, but
of many things.
It's interesting to have that weight. It does make it sort of it's a rich performance, right? Like we talk about finding your voice or being yourself on stage, and being yourself means fearing sort of your comedic voice and being silly, but having it so it feels like the weight of your life story is there, even in jokes where you're not telling that. Right? That marriage joke, the joke you do on the set you do on Corden is the joke about how marriage is childlike, and the thing about tongue kissing a dog. And then a person sees that, goes like, it looks like she's on the verge of tears, I think is a really beautiful thing.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's always me arguing for how life is beautiful.
Yeah.
Right? Or like, I never wanted to be here, anyway, but I am. So let's fucking do this. It's like that's behind, I think, all my jokes. And to say something like that means, oh, well, she's unwell. To have to shout that, I didn't want to be here anyway. That's an unwell person.
Yeah.
That's a sad person. But, it's an anthem.
Yeah.
None of us wanted to be here.
Yeah, I think that is partly the joy of your shows. It is this sort of existential version of like, we are here, so let's have fun with whatever here is.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
You mentioned you toured Asia. This was, when we last spoke, we talked a little bit about like how that was a big deal for you. I was curious what that experience was like. How did it change you as a comedian? How did it change you as a person to have that experience?
I mean, it was cool to see that, like, I didn't change my show, I didn't, it was like, just me being me was accepted also universally. So I was like, okay, good. Like, it would be a bummer, right? To be like, oh, wait, I have to super change for Asia or Australia or New Zealand. I got to still be me. So I was like, okay, good. It makes sense. They came out to see me because they like me for me. And great. So now, it's just about like digging deeper, right? There was some jokes that I shortened, for example, like the cheerleading stuff, because internationally they don't have cheerleaders, right? It's an American and maybe Canadian thing, but not even Canada really has cheerleaders.
You'd think it would spread just because of the amount of American content about cheerleaders, that you think people would be like, what's that American phenomenon? We should have cheerleaders. Wouldn't that be funny? And then next thing you know, there's cheerleaders in Australia or something. But
no cheerleaders in Australia. It's an unhinged thing that's very, very specific to us.
Yeah.
We need that. We need girls to, a whole ass job where it's them being like, you got this, because we don't have healthcare and, police brutality, probably.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I also ranked the countries from most shyest to liveliest, right?
Okay.
And it is usually like the more like rights you have as a human, the shyer you are as an audience.
That's fascinating. So what was the shyest?
Shyest was Belgium.
Mm-hmm.
And then out of 27 countries, Indonesia was the liveliest. Yeah.
We need this.
Yeah, oh my God. Yeah, they're like that. Yeah. Most people in Indonesia make like $4,000 annually.
Mm-hmm.
That's their income. They were like, you came here to see us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it was cool. But yeah, that's what I learned.
There's a joke you tell in this special that predates this hour. I believe it predates Intruder. I think you did it on your albums, which is I'm Taiwanese and Japanese. That's why I look Korean. This is a joke
Right.
you've had for a while. It's on an early album, but you told this joke at the Unforgettable Gala, which is an event that recognizes AAPI leaders and entertainers. And that joke now has like 100 million views across social media channels.
Right. I'm the product of a Taiwanese mother and a Japanese father. Yeah. And that is why I look Korean.
What did that joke mean when you first wrote it? And like, how does it live now that it is like a phenomenon?
Yeah. I just was like, oh, it's gone forever. I'm not doing that ever again. But then when I was asked to present at an Asian award show, there was a moment where I was like, oh, that old joke could be unexpected and funny. Because, I always want to be entertaining and funny, even when I'm just presenting an award to someone. Yeah, I ended up doing that. I was like, it's been so long. I don't even know if it's documented anywhere. I didn't know it was on an album.
Yeah.
I don't remember that. Yeah. And I did it. And then, also because people also recognize me more now. So I think when I put something out now, it reaches even more people. So I think it's worth revisiting things that you might have taped but for a smaller audience back then, but because it was seen by that many people this time, like 100 million or whatever, I had to acknowledge it in the special when I go, I'm half Taiwanese and half Japanese. Because so much of the audience, that wasn't always there in the hour. But my hour changed a lot in the 2 years that I toured. It wasn't there for a long time. But then people started saying that punchline at me. So I was like, okay, so I have to acknowledge it. That's why I do it kind of like a throwaway line. Because everyone's thinking it. When I go, I'm half Taiwanese and half Japanese, and I just
because you were just going to say that information.
Yeah, so that you know why I'm speaking Mandarin and Japanese, right?
Yeah.
It's just context, but then everyone would be like, that's why you look Korean. And I was like, okay, if you're thinking it, I gotta at least get ahead so you don't do that anymore. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So now it's time for the final segment of the show. It's called the laughing round. It's like a lightning round because this is comedy. It's like I call it laughing round. Do you have a favorite joke? Like a street joke or a dad joke?
Oh, gosh. No.
It's okay.
Yeah, street joke. No.
Okay. Skipped.
I did that so much as a kid to adults that I was trying to connect to when I was learning English. I'm very embarrassed.
Do you know any of them? Like not even favorite ones?
It's literally just like knock, knock. Who's there? Aren't you glad
that one's great.
You're seeing me or something like that? Because those were the jokes I knew.
Yeah. Is there a joke you wish you can steal? Like a joke of another comedian's that you wish you could have in your act? But you wouldn't be stealing it. Like it's allowed.
Yeah.
No one's gonna be like, let's go stole this joke. It'd just be like, you get to have this joke. You get to tell it.
Oh, there's so many.
What's the first thing that came to mind?
Because I was like, wow, I never thought of it. Jokes can be this simple. Like Gary Goldman talking about like the CD player being like seeing that these days. At that time, it was like past the CD player moment, like the portable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A Walkman.
And having to work out with that on a treadmill and him seeing someone do that and he's like, I wonder if they're okay. And then that it looked like a pizza. Like these days it's so big. You're like, oh my God, that's how big it used to be. We have MP3 players now. I thought he was holding a pizza, and then it just he goes on and on about the portable CD player that was so great. And then
what is the best advice that you took or you've taken?
I guess people don't really stop and give me advice. I don't know why. Maybe they think I have it figured out, or they're like, "There's no hope." Maybe it's either one of those. Probably the second one.
Well, or the other is like, what is advice you would give to an aspiring comedian or performer?
Well, I'll say this. There's two things. So, like my friends, for some reason, like my comedy friends are like a generation above me, or 2 generations above me, or they're like in their 20s, like which is 10 years younger than me. I don't know why. I guess because it makes sense because I'm very childlike because I didn't really have a childhood. And then I was raised by someone 50 years older than me. So I think that's why. I've always had an old soul, but also, I yearn for childlikeness.
Yeah.
That's why.
Got it.
So people in my 30s, I'm like, who are you?
Yeah.
I don't connect. And so, so like Tig once told me, you don't have to say recently before you go into a joke. Recently, I did this. Just say, I did this. And then Mike Birbiglia was just like, don't forget about the people in the balcony to look at them while you're performing. And it was like the first time I was performing in a theater with a balcony. So I was like, oh, right. It's not just to the people in front of me.
Yeah.
So very simple, but great advice.
That's
that I
like
still
beautiful,
use.
practical advice.
Yeah.
Can you tell me, I don't think you've talked about Throwaway, but you shot a Lost Netflix show that was like The Voice, but for comedy.
Oh, yeah, right.
Can you explain the entire arc of that show? Like what happened to it?
Oh, yeah. So
or what was it?
Yeah, so pandemic is what happened.
Yes, no, I know that's what happened to it, but like what was actually the show?
Right. So it was like there were, I think, like 60 comedians to start. And then, we would perform in front of an audience, and 3 judges is Tig Notaro, Dion Cole, and Neil Brennan. And then they would choose you to be on their team if they liked you, like The Voice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they could choose, oh gosh, I don't know how many comedians. I think it got whittled down to 30 people. No, 12.
Yeah.
So I was like one of 4 that Tig chose.
And then each episode, is it like you would perform and then she would give you tips?
I'm like, sweetie, we got to episode 2.
And then we're shut down.
Yeah. So then they would sit and be like, okay, what are you thinking for your next set? Let's run some jokes. And then they would like give advice and tips.
Yeah.
And then we were supposed to do that set for a live audience again. And then whittle it down to even, But it wasn't like gonna be like Last Comic Standing where there were like different challenges. So I was curious, like, it's just that? It's just performing, then advice, performing, then advice. A lot of like talking head interviews in between, but like send us out and run an errand or something, right? That would be more exciting.
Like go and observe X and then write something about X.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you have a short story of an interaction with a legendary comedian, living or dead, you're willing to share?
I mean, they're all legendary, right? The people I named. I mean, Margaret Cho. We're
You just
friends.
have to tell us. Just pick one and you tell a story about them.
Chelsea Handler is a friend too now, and I love the way she parties. She's silly energy. Yeah. My first like private jet experience was with her, but I was so nervous to be on a jet plane. I don't know how regular airplanes work. Private jets are actually scarier because you feel everything. I was like, am I supposed to feel the wind? Everything. I felt like I felt the clouds, and so I was like, I don't know how to. So I was like trying to even put the seatbelt in, and her being like, it's just a regular seatbelt. But I love her directness. We get along well because she'll just be like, are you wearing a tag? Do you still have your tag on your shirt again? I'm like, yeah. We know each other very well. I'm like, yes, you're right. I do.
Who is your comedian Mount Rushmore?
Like I'm the carver.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Like you're the carver.
It's like Margaret Cho, Chris Rock. This will start fights. Yeah.
That's the goal.
Well, it's gonna be so. I'm gonna choose like that generation.
Sure.
So like my friends in their 40s or something won't be like, why not me? I'm like, I chose people in their 50s.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
That works. I think that makes sense.
Okay. Chelsea, because I grew up watching her in that garage I grew up in. So.
One more face.
Yeah. Why there gotta be 4?
You can do one face twice if you'd like.
Yeah. Mine is 3, and we'll stop there.
It's your mountain.
Yeah.
Whatever you want.
Right.
Put your own face on
it. Yeah. I can work with limitations.
Tig's face. You can put Tig's face on it. Or you feel like Tig's...
Tig. Yeah.
Forcing you to
not to make it about age, but yes, it's that same generation.
What's a joke that didn't work that you'll go to your grave being like, that was funny. Everyone was wrong. This is so funny.
Oh, yeah. No, there's nothing. People are right.
Yeah.
And there's always a way you can make it funny. I just haven't arrived at it yet. That's all.
Is there any joke that you feel right now is in the space between the audience that's currently right, but I want to keep at it?
No, it's something where I haven't written it yet because I'm like, it's going to be so hard to write. Because it requires so much explaining. I haven't wrote it yet. Like I'm scared to write it, but I know exactly what.
Was it?
Well, it's just the idea that me and my husband like to kind of like fill in the holes, like create narratives for people that we see. And so there was this man at the TSA who had like who was stopped for having a lighter. It was international, and then it turned out he had like like he was like, okay, I have another one, and then he just kept having many lighters. So then we created this whole narrative about him where we decided he had 60 lighters.
Yeah.
I wrote it down. Is it okay?
Sure.
Right. We decided he had 40 lighters on him, imagining a scenario, and he started just like giving them up voluntarily. And then he's like, okay, actually, I actually have 150 lighters. I sell them back home in the States. And like the TSA is like, oh, what are my profit margins? Oh, like $200 to $300. It's not my main income. My wife's a doctor. She does most of the supporting. But this is my passion. Why 150? Because that's the limit, sir. Why you didn't know that? I don't know. So anyway,
It keeps on going.
yeah. So I don't know. Because I'll look insane doing it.
What's the best time you ever bombed?
Oh, this was like when I was way too green. I did America's Got Talent, like first year into comedy. They found my YouTube like video of the first ever set I did. And I went straight to like performing in front of like Sharon Osbourne, Howard Stern, and Howie Mandel. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't know. I was like, I don't know how it works. I didn't really like have friends I could run by. Like, what would be my 90 seconds on there? You know what I mean? Yeah. What does 90 seconds look like? What would be the best? You know what I mean? Yeah.
And they all did not choose you?
I think 2 people didn't. It was Sharon Osbourne and Howard Stern. Yeah. I went over the time too.
Yeah. Did it air?
No, because it was like that. Not interesting.
Yeah, I'm now scared that this being out there, a producer would be like, we got to find that.
Oh, they can? Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Because I think it wasn't bad. It just was like, I went over the time, and I think at that time, they also didn't really want to touch race. I think there was some race stuff I did. Yeah.
I'm sure it's great.
But it was like 2,000 Texans being like, yeah, no. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Thank you so much.
Oh my God, thank you for having me. Yay! Yay! That was Jessie.